going on, guys? Jaron, another epic video. Today, guys, we're going through and breaking down some Yu-Gi-Oh jargon, and kind of go through some of those terms and definitions. If you guys are new, my channel is mostly focused on helping you and returner players get better at the game and understanding how to play, and all that good stuff. If you guys are new, definitely consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video. I greatly would appreciate that. I saw the other day where Paul had posted on the Team APS Plus channel going over, hey, this is one of the things that most people don't know about jargon holding them back. And I'm like, hey, that's a good point. Like I commented on the video as well uh, to them. So I figured that's what I do in this video, guys. We would go through, do a lot of the jargon and things like that. If there's anything I missed, please post it down in the comments below. I try to get all the main stuff that I felt like that would be important to discuss. This doesn't have everything, but this has the main stuff that you are going to hear and the stuff that you have to be, you really need to be familiar with, so you understand what's going on and not at a disadvantage. Whether you're playing the game or maybe even watching just Yu-Gi-Oh content on, just in general. All right, so we'll go ahead and get the party started, guys. So we'll start with control being the first one. So, right, you hear a lot about control or control decks. These are typically what this term is basically used for in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is really your opponent really controlling your board, essentially, or you controlling your board if you're playing a control deck. Basically, what that means is you're limiting your opponent's plays, right? You're forcing them to only play like a certain type of a monster, like maybe they can only play their limit to only play an Earth, maybe Earths or Earth Warriors. Maybe you've got like the classic one is Mystic Mind, right? Their effects can't activate, they can't attack. Things like that, kind of like control and kind of like stun, kind of go hand in hand. So that's essentially what a control deck is. Usually, it's going to be more trapped, or it's going to be something more of like continuous effect, mostly like continuous trap cards. Like rivalry and goes in match, things like that is where you're going to see typically in those type of decks in like Mystic Mind. Another one, so we'll go next would be rule sharking. This term is usually used, or you just hear people say sharking. If you watch Coder's channel, Distant Coder, you'll see like, especially if he does like his Ask the Judge questions, you'll see he's got several videos on this, or during his live streams, you'll see people trying to shark, whether it be their opponent, basically going through and trying to get them some sort of like infraction and things like that. Really, calling necessarily a judge or essentially peer pressuring your opponent into maybe making them think a play that's, that's legal, legal, that's not legal, or vice versa, things like that. So really, it's just being, a pain in the butt. Uh, when it's coming to, just not really respecting the opponents. It's very important we're respecting each other in your communication throughout the game. Uh, is in point. You're explaining what you're doing it as you're going through the plays. You're explaining what the card does, what you're doing with, said card in effect. Scoop, you hear this quite a lot in Yu-Gi-Oh! Right? Scoop basically just means you quit. All right, you've already noticed you've already lost. They've already got enough on board, and maybe they're it's notorious for people overextending combo. They already have enough to finish you, and they're still going through their full combo. Things like that. So scooping, basically just quitting the duel, just you surrendering essentially. The next one we'll talk about is staples. So staple, basically, the staple refers to a card. It could be really pretty much anything. Staple cards are really just cards that could go in pretty much any deck, like Pankratops. You could even really say hand trap, hand traps like Ash Blossom, things like that. Um, Anything of that nature, like the Shawtalot cards will come out. I think will be staples a lot as well. Things like that. Harpy's Feather Duster would be an example of a staple. Get rid of back row. Things of that nature. Next one we'll talk about would be stacking. So stacking is like it could be referred to. This someone actually got, I can't remember who the person was, but it was a professional player that not too long ago got uh, banned and disqualified from some of their games for actually stacking their deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think this happened in Magic and the Gathering as well, not too long back from Magic and the Gathering as well. This happened recently, not too long ago, with Yu-Gi-Oh! As well. Basically, what it is you're stacking your cards. So when you're shuffling, it's very important when your opponent's shuffling, making sure they're not looking at their deck, they're looking away, and they're shuffling kind of away so they can't see the cards. You shouldn't be able to see it, your opponent shouldn't be able to see it. So it's very important you're making sure your opponent's looking away and they're not taking some cards and doing some sleight of hand, so they're putting on the top of the deck, the card they're wanting to, draw or something like that. So it's important you're paying attention to that as well. Engines, these are basically, an engine basically is just a set of cards that you could go through and use to, um, kind of used to basically extend or play. It's really used to kind of help turbo out your deck and kind of adds more as consistency to the deck, usually meant to make it consistent and speed it up. That's essentially how I would like to, far as phrase like what an engine is. You could look at it in different ways, but that's essentially what an engine does as far as Yu-Gi-Oh! Like the Shatala would be an engine. You could say like some of the Chaos stuff could be an engine. Uh, Things like that. There's so many engines in the game, it's ridiculous. Like Despia, technically could be an engine. There's all kind of stuff. Extender, this could be like anything that you use to extend plays with. There's so many cards that fit this. Basically, just you're going to use to extend. So usually means like if I'm looking for an extender, it's or you guys hear me saying in the stream, it's something like that. Usually we're looking for something to summon additionally, right? We want something else as extender. Usually it's like a monster to special summon to the field or something to get us another monster on the board so we can extend our plays and either link climb or fusion climb or whatever the case may be. Or maybe just extend to, maybe for, just to get another card on board for a game or whatever. The FTK, so this stands for first turn kill. The most common one usually is like our famous one is Exodia, or it could be anything done as far as like just opponent going through in a series of combos just to burn you out of life points and recycling a lot of their cards. There's still quite a few FTKs. Uh, in Yu-Gi-Oh, but that's just like the most common ones that I'll bring up at the moment, so we don't need to dive too deep into that. OTK, like this one, you guys hear me say a lot. So basically, overkill essentially. So what we're gonna do over here for like what for going for OTK, you're gonna basically just do over damage. Like so, we have 8,000 life points. So like I posted a video the other day where I did 25,000 damage in one turn. That would be an OTK, for example, because right you'll have 8,000 life points. I can do 25,000 damage. So that's what an OTK is. You're just you're excessively over doing over the 8K or whatever their life points is at that particular moment damage. Hand trap, right? So these are going to be, you guys are going to say hand trapped, or you may hear like ash, things like that. These are just going to be referred to like the hand traps in the game, like ash, Veiler, shifter, gamma, ghost bell, things like that. So I've got another video on hand traps if you want to check that out, me going through them. If you want to check that out. Inherent, so this is a summon, basically it's a summon that doesn't start uh, a chain. So basically what it is, like example, this is the reason I love the Scareclaw deck so well. All of them are inherent summons, which I go over in another some of my Scareclaw videos. So if you want more info on inherent summons and why they're so good, uh, right? Because your opponent basically can't respond to them, they can't negate it. So uh, make sure you check out any of my Scareclaw content. That's really good. A loop. There's so many different loops in the game. One of the most probably still famous ones was not people talk a lot was the good old six samurai loop combo. Go through and looping them and really kind of destroying your opponent's board and or just looping your cards and building up the counters with the six samurai deck. I'll have a new updated profile for you guys with that deck, and we'll see if we can. I'll probably showcase some loops and stuff like that during that time. Mistiming, basically, this what this means. If someone you hear this phrase mistiming, basically meaning the timing for the card effect. So that's why it's very important you're reading the card text. If you guys would like me to do another video on stuff like that or like discussion type videos, uh, like I mentioned, like Paul's video earlier, like if you guys would like me to do something like that, let me know down below in the comments. But basically, just meaning your effect doesn't work, just to simplify it, right? Basically, you didn't meet the criteria to do it, or something else happened. Sometimes certain effects have to activate right then. So like something else can't activate in chain. Like if it activates in chain, the card may miss its timing, and then the card doesn't resolve. So basically, the effect fizzles out, which is another thing you'll hear is like fizzle, which basically just usually means it just doesn't miss its timing essentially. OP, just standard overpowered, usually refers to like if a card's just ridiculously too good. So you'll hear a lot of that. You heard a lot too of just play the out, just draw the out. That's been trending a lot here recently in Yu-Gi-Oh! Basically, just the out. A lot of the famous one so far right now is with Mystic Mind. Just draw the Cyclone, the Twin Twister, the Duster, the Lightning Storm, or whatever it is you're playing to get rid of Mystic Mine. So that's been going on a while. Meta decks are going to be the decks that are like tier one, tier one, tier zero, maybe even tier point one, 1.5, or even tier two. Things like that are basically the main decks that are being played in Yu-Gi-Oh! Usually it's the newest set and series cards. Like Splight would be a good example of a meta deck that recently come out. Rogue would be pretty much what I play specifically is Rogue. So basically, it's just it's just basically other decks that are not meta essentially. So any deck that's not meta essentially just pretty much falls into the rogue category, which is pretty much mostly what I play. Spell speed 4 is not a official Yu-Gi-Oh term, but it's one used by the community. Usually mean for like cards like Super Poly for things like that, where you can't enter your opponent can't respond. So like Super Poly, they can't respond. Uh, so things like that, or like Dark Ruler no more, they can't respond with monster effects, so they would have to use, a trap or something of that effect uh, to get rid of it because they can't activate monster effects and respond until like Dark Ruler no more. So Dark Ruler, Super Poly, cards like that are cards that are like spell that the community would refer to as like spell speed 4. Break, you guys will hear me say a lot in the streams too, like breaking their board, or I even mentioned this in deck profile videos. Basically, just going through and just playing through and getting rid of your opponents, whether it could be just breaking their board as far as getting rid of their negates, or destroying their negates, or getting rid of their back row cards, or whatever it is that's kind of like in your way. Essentially, that's really what that refers to. Is just breaking their board, so that way you can, essentially at the same time you're building your board and you're able to play through what they have. So we broke their board, and now we can start attacking them directly or get rid of what little few monsters they have on the field. Chain block. This one isn't talked about too much as far as broke down. The terminology is thrown around a lot. So what chain blocking is, guys? I've went over this before with my Dino deck. Like the standard combo would be like have Lost World on the field for the Dino field spell, then summon Ovi. Ovi would be Chain Link 1, and the field spell would be Chain Link 2. This would keep your opponent from interacting, so that way you can resolve Overraptor and you can pull, whether it be Miss, Conductor, or whatever it is that you're needing from hand. That would be chain blocking your opponent, so it keeps your opponent from responding because they can only respond to the last part of the chain, which in this case would be Lost World activating to summon the token since we summoned Overraptor per turn. Alright, so next you'll hear the term basically search. So search or searching, something to that extent. Usually it could just be a card. Um, that like reinforcement of the army, something like that, or something that has some sort of effect that pulls something maybe from the deck to your hand, deck to the field, or it could even be maybe even deck to the graveyard. Usually that's more of like the other term would be like milling, like if you're milling cards off the deck. Whether it be like for tier elements would be a very common one, light sworn would be a very common one, things like that. Uh, or the Dark World. Dark World's about to get more popular here once the set comes out here soon. Um, Also, next one would be blind going second. I usually this is uh, decks referred to. Basically, they're just strictly built for going second, right? Because most people love going first. So, right, you can go ahead and take that to advantage in your deck building process. Assume that your opponent's going to be playing some, tier one or tier zero deck that's meta, and they're obviously want to go first, so they're going to want to build their board to keep you from playing. Well, you've already taken to that account, and you've built a blind going second deck. Your deck is specifically built to counter everything that they would do in a meta deck going first. So that's essentially what a blind going second deck is. Stall, basically you're stalling, right? You're stalling for time, especially in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, or even locals for that matter. Uh, you're stalling for time. Maybe you're up in life points, and you're just, or another term casually thrown is like slow play. So maybe you're purposely playing slow because you know the clock's running out, and you don't really have anything to do. You've already attacked, or maybe you can't attack because you don't have enough stuff on. You don't have the proper stuff on board to attack or whatever. Um, and you're just not doing anything. You're just playing slow to run out the clock so you can win. Oh, because my life, your life points are higher, kind of thing. When really you didn't have nothing you should have done. You should have ended your turn, passed it to your opponent, and your opponent should have been able to play. So that's usually what that is people just trying to take advantage of that, essentially cheating. In other words, that's why it's important that you're, paying attention, making sure, see if your opponent's actually, see if your opponent is slow playing. It's just going back to making sure you have good communication with your opponent. Uh, and the same thing with them with you, all that good stuff. Swarm. This one's usually like we're swarming the board, like with Scareclaw, swarm the board, light swarm, swarm. Danger would be another uh, good archetype that swarms as well too. So right, a lot of stuff just swarms as far as like special summons the board like crazy. Is essentially what it means. You're just spamming the board like crazy, just swarming all your monsters to the field, right? Piercing does just doing damage and defense, so you're taking damage and defense. So like my try hard attacking, as long as I have Balone on the field, he can do piercing damage. So yep, yep. If you guys, like I said, if I missed anything, let me know down below in the comments. Or if you guys use different terminology for these, let me know down below in the comments of how you look at it from your perspective. But that's why I try to give like just basic generic stuff so that way it makes sense to everybody. Versus some people have like their own little shortcut if that makes sense to things. But that'll do it for this one, guys. I appreciate your love and support, and I'll see you in the next one.